Hello again, my little sellswords, and welcome to another Mordian Glory video. In today's episode, we shall be doing another after action report. That's right, it's time for some more dispatches from the front lines. And oh boy, do I have a spicy meatball for your viewing pleasure today, because I took the brand new Renegade Crowns to their first competitive Old World tournament. And when I say competitive, oh baby, it was a little bit of a Shark Tank. Dragons, cannons, and big balloons. The men of Vossenberg's Vagabonds, my mercenary company, had to take it all on. And you know what? It's just like they say. We won't fight for no country, but we'll die for good pay. And so without further ado, let's don our full plate armor and phalanx right into this thing. As is tradition, I want to start the video off with a few quick thank yous. First up, I want to say a big thank you to the host and tournament organizer for this event, Just Play Games in Liverpool. If you've watched any of my tournament reports at this point, you will be familiar with Just Play. They are my friendly local gaming store, and honestly, it's just a really good venue. They always put on great events. They've got a great shop, great staff, and everything is just legit. I can highly recommend both their Warhammer 40k and Old World tournaments, which I am a regular attendee of. I also want to say a massive thank you to all of my opponents, because I played 3 fantastic games at this event. And you only get to play good games if the person on the other side of the table is a good person to play against. Warhammer, whether it's 40k or Old World, and war games in general, are very much a social thing. And the person that you're playing against can make or break a game. And you know what? Every single game that I played was just fantastic. This just felt like a proper Old World event, and it was a ton of fun. But with all that said, now let's move on to the video proper, and let's begin with the army list overview. As per usual, I have recorded a separate video getting into the nitty-gritty detail of the army list, and I'll make sure there's a link to that video down in the description below. But for those of you who just want a quick summary, here is the list. I was running 2,000 points of Renegade Crowns just in their Grand Army. In my character selection, I had an Outcast Wizard who was level 3 with a Lore Familiar and Elementalism, and I picked the same 3 spells every single time: Plague of Rust, Earthen Ramparts, and then I went for Windblast. I then had a Renegade Captain who was my BSB. He was upgraded with full plate armor and a pistol, and he had the Noble Outlaw Heritage, and he had the Pearl Daggers. My next character was my General. It was a Renegade Prince, full plate armor with the Telian Stoicism Heritage and the Sword of Battle. Finally, I had another Renegade Prince who was equipped with full plate armor, Telian Stoicism, and he had the Duelist Blades. Moving on to my core, I had 23 Veteran Sellswords with full command, full plate, and great weapons. Then 29 regular sellswords with thrusting spears, heavy armor, and full command and shields. Another 29 veteran sellswords with full plate armor, full command, and halberds. And then 2 units of 10 sellsword infantry with crossbows and light armor. For my special units, I had a single squad of 8 veteran freeblades. They had lances, full plate armor, shields, full command, and barded warhorses. Finally, in the rare selection, I had 2 Border Princes Bombards. Yep, that's right, I finally learned that you can't take more than 2 guns in a Renegade Crowns army. For those of you that were watching the Road to the Tournament series that Simon and I did with the battle reports and everything, it took me a little while to learn that you couldn't put the more than 2 guns in a Renegade Crowns army, but I did make sure that I had that nailed down and correct for the tournament. As for the rest of the list, I went for the veteran freeblades because I realized that it was better to have the tool in the toolbox than not to have it, and even though a lot of people don't like the heavy cavalry, I think, well, there's going to be games when it's just fine, and there's going to be games when it saves your ass. And I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. As for the 3 big bricks of infantry, the idea was that I was going to put 1 each of the characters with them. So the captain would go with 1 and the 2 princes would go with the other 2. And then I had the 2 crossbow squads because I wanted to have a 3rd gun, but I wasn't allowed a 3rd gun. So I basically dropped the organ gun and put 2 units of crossbowmen in. And you know what's kind of crazy? I actually think that made the list better. I have become fully sold on taking a couple of units of ranged infantry, especially in Renegade Crowns. They're dirt cheap. 60 points for 10 crossbows. Yep, I'll take that every day of the week. In total, I had 85 infantry models, including characters, 8 heavy cavalry, and 2 guns. And with all of that covered, now let's move on to the lay of the land. So this event was a classic old world RTT. 3 games in 1 day. It was a 2,000 point event using the match play guide for all of its missions, and Renegade packs were allowed from the square based guides. So for example, you could bring Renegade Skaven rather than the official GW Skaven, but we were not using the square based comp, so no high elves getting 2,400 points or anything like that. Quick side note though, this tournament took place very soon after that whole thing had been announced, and I am going to have a little chat with the guys at Just Play because I have a really good relationship with them, and I am going to suggest that they maybe try it out for an event because I do think that it would help shake things up a little bit, and also it looks like it might be a ton of fun. But getting back to this event, I guess the big question is, how competitive was it? And I'm not going to lie, I would say this was a little bit of a Shark Tank, especially for Just Play RTT. Over the last few months, the guys at Just Play have really stepped up their game, and a lot of the lists that we've been seeing have been pretty spicy. And this was actually the first time, kind of to like mark this whole thing, to really give a good example, this was the first time that we had someone bring Cathay to the event, and let me tell you, they are just as busted as you've been led to believe. Yeah, very, very powerful. Long story short, this ain't no vibe event. This ain't no fluffy bunny event. This was a proper competitive tournament. Overall, I would say that about 60 or 70% of the players there had strong lists, very strong lists, and the remaining 30% were more vibes based and were sort of just bringing what they wanted to, what was fun. Quick side note, Salty Simon, the Admiral himself, came with me to this tournament, and so not only are you going to get this after action report, but also we'll be doing an after action report from his perspective as part of one of our Saltcast episodes. But you know what? I think that is enough pre-game preamble. I know why you're all here. So without further ado, let's get into the games. So game number 1 was against Stee and his Warriors of Chaos. In his list, he had a squad of Harpies, 2 units of Chaos Hounds, a unit of Chaos Spawn, 2 small units of Forsaken, a Chaos Chariot, a Demon Prince, a big Makoff unit of Chaos Warriors with command. There's a character in there, and they were all Mark of Khorne, and they had sword and board. And then he had a unit of 5 chosen knights with the Mark of Khorne. Mission for round 1 was a straight up pitch battle with a couple of objectives, 1 in each player's deployment zone. Now what was really cool is Stee had created these nice objective markers which were like chaos growths, chaos tentacles, chaos plants coming out of the ground, and it really added that extra layer of immersion. And so we actually sort of had a bit of a chat because I've bumped into Steve a few times. It just plays a good lad, and it was great to actually finally get a chance to play against him. And we sort of came up with this narrative around the game that the Vossenberg's vagabonds have been sent to the edge of the Chaos Waste to maybe recover some artifact. Maybe there's some dark wizard somewhere that's hired them. They don't ask questions. They just get paid the coin. They just cash the checks. You know what I mean? And so the idea was that we've turned up to the Chaos Waste. We've started investigating this thing Obviously, the Warriors of Chaos don't like their realm being even slightly encroached upon. Maybe this is more like in Nausicaa or something like that, but either way, they don't like interlopers into their realm, even if it's just on the border of it. And so a raiding band led by a demon prince has come to claim the souls of these foolish mortals. See, it's not just at home where you can have some fun narrative. It's important to make sure you're doing it in all of your games. But let's get into the deployment. So it was a standard deployment, 12 inches on, you had the full length of the board, and on the left I had a hill. So I put a unit of crossbows and a war machine, a bombard up there. I did originally think about having both bombards up there, but what I quite like about Renegade Crowns is the lack of engineers, plus the fact that your war machines are actually pretty safe with the special misfire table that they have, means that you don't have to automatically dump them all on the hill. You can be a little bit more flexible with them, and this ended up being really, really useful because it meant I could spread my war machines out, and that made them a little bit less of an obvious target. So I had a bombard on the hill, a bombard off the hill, and then covering both of them was my unit of great swords. Moving on to the center, we had the halberdiers and the spearmen, and there was a character in each one of those. BSB was with the spearmen, and my general was with the halberdiers. And then we had the magician, the mage, the outcast wizard in the middle, investigating the oogly woogly tentacles. Finally, over on the right-hand flank, I had a unit of crossbows in a nice, long, extended line. They were kind of using this piece of terrain here to stop being outflanked. And then I had my heavy cavalry. I'm not going to lie, the right flank was a bit of a shit show. It was a bit of a delaying action, if I'm going to be real. I didn't expect the right flank to survive, but I hope that the crossbows would be able to pick off some of the smaller units, and the knights might be able to... Well, I figure the knights would probably be able to do something to the chosen knights before they inevitably got chopped to pieces. But we'll see. Got to have a bit of that lance-on-lance combat. Speaking of the Chaos units, Steve's deployment, he went heavy. He went heavy on my right flank. So we had the knights with the war dogs in front. Then we had the spawn with the Forsaken behind. And then in the middle, we had the big brick of Khorne warriors. And then we had the Demon Prince. Over on the left flank, I actually had more over there than Steve. And I think he was doing a bit of a delaying action thing as well. He had his fast movers, including a chariot, basically hoping to pick up my war machines. With all units deployed, it was time to start this thing. And so we rolled off to see who was going to get the first turn, and the Vagabonds sprung into action. Perhaps the Chaos Warriors thought that by merely turning up, we would retreat like the lesser men of the Empire, like the state troops. But we are not state troops. We are sellswords. And if we don't earn our gold, then we don't get paid. And so with the promise of an extra gold coin for each head that was brought to our Renegade Prince, we got the first turn. And we were pretty aggressive. I actually didn't just sit there gunlining it. I wanted to move forward. And the reason for this is because I've played against Chaos quite a lot. And I've learned that if you stand there and let them come to you, they are going to come to you. And then they're basically going to push you off the board. So I moved forward tentatively with all of my melee units. I didn't get too Billy Big Bollocks. I just moved forward just a little bit to give me a bit of breathing room without blocking off my lines of sight. With the phalanxes in position, it was time to unleash our firepower. The crossbowmen on the right quickly sent the war dogs packing, killing 3 of them and the other 2 fleeing. We then had the crossbowmen on the left unleash a very good volley, killing all 5 of the war dogs. Very, very nice. I will say one thing. I like crossbows. I really like them. I've been a gunpowder man for a little while now. Love me Nuln, love me Empire, love me handguns. But in the eternal debate between crossbows and handguns, I think I'm now team crossbow. 30-inch range, meaning that I absolutely have the range. Turn 1 is so useful. I mean, whenever I play Null and I have my handguns, I'm just not in range turn 1. I just never am. But having that 30-inch range just means I'm going to reach out, I'm going to hit you, and I'm going to hit you from the get-go. But it wasn't just lowly dogs that we slew. There was also a Chaos Chariot that was introduced to the Bombards. Double Bombard, double hit, double wound, double dead. Chariot taken out. This marked the end of Renegade Crowns turn 1, and we went over to the Chaos Response, which was exactly what you would expect. They charged pretty much everything forward. Chosen Knights barreling over the hill, Spawn randomly moving forward, Forsaken following up behind, and a big brick of warriors moving into the center. We also had some Harpies that were coming over on the side as well, ready to start threatening my war machines and my crossbowmen. Amazingly, the Chaos Hounds on the right flank actually rallied as well, which you don't see that every day considering their famously low leadership. The last thing to mention is, unfortunately, the Demon Prince did not manage to get any of his spells off. In fact, he actually miscast on his first spell and did a wound to himself. With a customary quick Chaos turn, they don't really have much shooting, it was back over to Renegade Crowns turn 2. And the Vagabonds responded to the Chaos advance with a little bit of repositioning. I didn't want to go barreling in there just yet. I needed to let my guns whittle the foe down just a little bit more. So there was a slight shifting of position in the center, and the same with the greatswords, just making sure I was just over the maximum charge range of the Forsaken there. But that was about it. After that, we unleashed the guns. On the left flank, my crossbowmen fired into the Harpies, but unfortunately their aim was not quite as true as the first round, and we only killed 2 of 6. I then fired the Bombard down here into the Demon Prince because I figured there was a chance I could one-shot him, but he passed his ward save, which is fair enough. Then the crossbowmen went after the Chaos Knights, but unfortunately their armor protected them against my bolts. The last shot of the turn was my cannon, and I actually managed to fire all the way over to the Chaos Knights here, and I hit all 5 of them. The perfect side shot, and I thought, oh my god, this is massive, this is game changing. And then I rolled 3 1s to wound. Now there was a chance there that I could have wiped out those Chaos Knights, but as it was, I managed to pitch 2 of them from the saddle. However, even though I did not kill the Chaos Knights, clearly that cannonball had an impact. Because as we went over to Chaos turn 2, and the Knights went to roll their charge because they're frenzy, they rolled a double 1 on the charge, and then on the Swift Stride, rolled another 1. Quite literally, the worst possible charge result that you can get. Meaning that the Chaos Knights failed their charge. Now, I don't mean to alarm you, but if any one of these dice had been a 2, Steve would have made the charge. This was the one result that meant he didn't make the charge, which is insane. The reason why that result meant that he didn't make the charge is because when I did my counter charge move, I actually rolled quite well on my counter charge, which moved me quite close. So it was literally the one result that Steve didn't want to get, and he just got the 111, which is insane. But now we move on to the rest of the Chaos turn, which basically consisted of the Demon Prince hopping from one building to the other, the Spawn and the Forsaken barreling up here, and the Chaos Warriors wheeling and lining themselves up in the mid. The Forsaken over here just sort of stumbled forward a little bit. I think actually I was just within their charge range. I know I said last time that I wasn't in their charge range, but I think I was just in the charge range, and they failed it, unfortunately for them. The Harpies did make it into the crossbowmen, but between the stand and shoot and my hand weapons, I was actually able to kill all of the Harpies to a man. The turns are coming thick and fast now as we enter the mid part of the game. Renegade Crowns, turn 3. On the right flank, I decide to charge the Spawn. Now, these Knights are definitely going to get counter-attacked by the Spawn and the other Chaos Knights, but I figured that it's better for them to earn some points before they go down rather than no points. I also found my crossbows into the Forsaken and managed to kill one of them. And my infantry move forward a little bit, just staying out of range of the Chaos Warriors. I don't want to give them the charge just yet. I need to whittle them a little bit, which I successfully do with Wind Blast and a cannon and another cannon, managing to kill, I think it's about 5 off the back row, which I was very happy with. I then fired my crossbows into the Forsaken on this flank and was able to kill one of them and able to kill 2 of them, sorry. And that was the end of my turn. I'm just whittling, and every turn that it takes Steve to get into combat is time that I have bought for my guns to do their work. And I've had 3 rounds of pretty decent shooting at this point. I've killed the Harpies, I've killed the dogs, I've seen the other unit of dogs off, I've killed the chariot, I've started whittling down the Forsaken, I've started whittling down the Knights, I've started whittling down the Chaos Warriors, I've started doing work on the other Forsaken, and I've even managed to kill one of the Spawn. So none of these units are really expensive that I've killed, and the chariot's not bad to be fair, but all of the other things are just getting whittled, and you can see how the majority of the Renegade Crown units, as we go into turn 3, are still intact, but nearly all of the Chaos units are damaged in some way. Of course, it was not going to stay that way as we get to Chaos turn 3, and Steve finally manages to close the distance. All of the action happened on the right flank, with the Spawn and the Knights charging into my Free Blades. Unfortunately, I just wasn't able to do any damage, and my Free Blade Knights were, my Veteran Free Blades were just routed off the board, and the Chaos Knights actually chased them down and killed them, giving them a free reform as well. So this went very well for Steve. That unit that he killed is 206 plus points, so that's a good amount of points in the bank. And he also flew his Demon Prince over here onto the flank of my crossbows. The Chaos Warriors moved into the center here, and there's basically no way that I can avoid that charge coming in on turn 4. But it did mean I had another turn of being able to shoot up this Chaos army. I turned the cannon here and went after the Demon Prince. Unfortunately, he passed his ward save again. I then put the crossbows and the other cannon and a Wind Blast and a Plague of Rust into these warriors here. I was able to kill another, I think 5 of them, so basically taken the back rank off. I think those, I even managed to snipe one with my Captain's BSB pistol. But the big thing that I did here is I lined up both of these units so that they were mutually supporting each other. Now, these guys are perfectly in line. The reason that's significant is it means that due to the nature of the wide formation of this unit of Chaos Warriors, there is no way that they can only charge one of these units. So when these warriors come in, and they have to come in because they have Mark of Khorne, they are going to hit both units. Now that is going to actually, I believe, mean they have a disrupted charge. That doesn't really make any difference because they're higher initiative than me anyway. But it does mean that both of my units will get to fight. And because my infantry are being charged, it means I will get to fight in 2 ranks with my halberds, and I'll get to fight in 3 ranks with my spearmen, whereas these Chaos Warriors will only get to fight in 1 rank. So this and bear in mind, all of my guys here have got a 4+ save thanks to full plate and then heavy armor shields, and I also have earthen ramparts off on one of these units. I can't quite remember which one it is, but I do have earthen ramparts off on one of these units. And I don't mean to alarm you, but this is the board at the end of Chaos turn 4. I beat the Warriors of Chaos in combat with my sellswords in their turn, which was a huge deal, and frankly was the turning point of the game. Steve really needed those Chaos Warriors to just smash through the center and completely open up this game. I actually expected him to do that. I had my great swords here ready for a counter charge when that inevitably happened. But it turns out that they breed them different in the Border Princes. These are some corn-fed people. Because my sellsword infantry, frankly, battered the Chaos Warriors. And that is something that never, ever, ever could have happened if these guys were regular state troops. So let me run you through what happened. So firstly, the Chaos Warriors had Plague of Rust on them, which means they go from a 3-up save to a 5-up save base. Then they're fighting into halberds, which are naturally AP -1. So a lot of the time they're going to be on a 6-up save. That's not good. The other thing is that I actually have the ramparts off on one of my units. So I've got a 4-up save followed by a 5-up save. I can't remember which one it was, but that basically each unit got their, got the attack sort of split. I think it was the halberdiers, because that's where his chaos character was, and you can see that even with like an exalted champion of Khorne in there, the casualties weren't that bad. So he comes charging in. He only gets 1 rank of attacks, and so he comes in and he kills sort of 5 from this unit and then 4 from this unit. But that means I've still got 6 attacks from the halberdiers plus my champion. Put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, so I've still got 6 or 7 attacks from my halberdiers, and then I've still got loads of attacks from my spearmen. I only lost like 4 spearmen, so I've still got basically like 10 attacks from the spearmen as well. And then I've got all my characters, and I've got my general in there with the sword of battle, and I've also got my captain in there with the pearl daggers, who rolled maximum for his number of attacks. And so I ended up just killing, I think, I lost like nine guys, but I ended up killing like 6 or so of the Chaos Warriors, like no issues whatsoever, just through volume and AP. The kill differential just was not that high, right? The Chaos Warriors may have had like a slight advantage. And then it came down to static combat res, which is, well, I've got 2 banners, and I've also got a BSB, and I've got a close order, and I've got a rank bonus of 1, 2, 3 here, and then I outnumber the Chaos Warriors. So it ends up being like the Chaos Warriors losing the combat by something like 5 or 6 overall. It was like really significant. And then they end up being double, because they don't have a rank bonus, because basically they lost enough to not get the rank, right? So the Chaos Warriors are double outnumbered as well. So then they fail their leadership test, but then it counts as a flee. And then they only flee like 3 or 4 inches. Because obviously they just like, the Chaos Warriors weren't expecting to lose this combat to puny mortals. And, well, I easily caught them. And then I did a reform here and was prepared for the knights coming round. And that was basically the turning point of the game, because that was a massive brick that died in the chaos turn. And then to add insult to injury, the Demon Prince comes flying into the flank of the crossbowmen, kills 5 of them, and they then promptly pass a double 1 leadership test. Bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. So obviously that is basically the end of the game, because the chaos are just utterly... I basically got my entire army intact, and the chaos are just down to this. Over the course of turn 5, I move forward, occupying the center position, moving my forces to be prepared for the scraplet charges of the chaos. But there's not much more they can do now. They're sort of maneuvering around here, but that's basically it. And we get to the end of the game with the Chaos Knights versus the Spearmen. They then have to charge into the Spearmen. They then lose to the Spearmen because of Plague of Rust, which just has been an amazing spell this entire game, putting them onto a fort. So Plague of Rust is one of my new favourite spells at this point, and you can just see it's been doing so much work. Amazingly, the War Dogs actually survived to the end, but that is basically the game there, with the remaining Chaos forces essentially laminating themselves against the unbreakable phalanxes of the Renegade Crowns. And so, with game 1 over, it was a convincing victory to the Renegade Crowns. And so we had come here, we had been hired to investigate the wiggly bits on the ground, and you can see we actually not only had our own wiggly bits, but we also had the enemy wiggly bits as well. And so we had fulfilled our contract, and we had managed to get the victory. So good work, lads. Everyone got paid today. But no rest for the wicked, and we go straight into game number 2. And once again, we face off against the forces of Chaos. This time I was playing against Jack, and he was running a pretty spicy list. He had 3 dragons and a lot of Chaos Knights. His first dragon was a Chaos Lord on a double-headed dragon. His second one was an Exalted Champion, or maybe a lower level character on a normal-headed dragon. And then he had a Warp Fire dragon. Supporting this, he had 2 units of Chaos Knights. There was one big mega unit of Knights here, and then there was a smaller unit of Knights here. None of the Knights were chosen Knights though, which meant that they were a little bit easier to deal with because they were rocking a 3-up save rather than the usual 2-up save, because they just have heavy armor rather than that full plate. The mission for this round was encirclement, meaning that I had to give up a little bit of my left flank, and so did Jack. There were 4 objectives in this game, and the mission was encirclement, which meant that you had to have a little bit of your left flank refused. This did actually affect my deployment, because as you can see, I had a hill, and I wanted to put my cannons and my crossbows on there, but Jack did have his knights, especially this little unit, which could easily run down here and mess all this up. So what I ended up doing is, rather than having my own knights over here, which I couldn't do, I actually had them behind the hill. So that was sort of my counter-attack force, because I figured 8 veteran Freeblades could probably take on 5 of the Chaos Knights. As for the rest of my deployment, big infantry phalanxes in the mid. Once again, the halberdiers and the spearmen supporting each other. I have found in my practice games, and obviously in the previous game of this event as well, that having these 2 units work together is really, really nice. On the flank, we had the greatswords. These can obviously break right and go for this objective, or they could break left and help deal with anything in the middle. And then I had a unit of crossbows in a wide extended line over on the right flank. Wasn't expecting much from them, but they needed to go somewhere. As for the Chaos deployment, Jack went screw it and put about 1,500 points in the middle. Straight down the mid, no messing about, ready to rock and roll. Now that obviously is very, very intimidating, but I wasn't actually too worried. It was a ballsy maneuver. It was a very Chaos player maneuver as well, just brute force your way to victory, and it absolutely can and will work in many scenarios. But firstly, I've played off against Chaos loads of times, so I know what they do. They run at you, and half of their path to victory is you getting flustered that they're just banzai charging you. As long as you stay cool and calm in the face of that firepower, well, not firepower, that offensive capability, I should say, then generally you'll be all right. Another reason why I was okay with it is because, well, I had about 1,500 points of my own army here as well. And I have seen these 2 bricks especially take the charge from the very best. Be they High Elf Swordmasters, Chaos Warriors, whatever it may be, these phalanxes have held against the best. They're very, very sticky. And so even though I know this is very scary, between my spells and my full plate armor, I think I've got a chance to be able to take this charge. And if I can take it and hold it, well, then we've got a game. Well, that was the plan anyway, but we rolled off to get the first turn, and for the first time in a long time, I went second. Now, unlike in Warhammer 40k, where I like to lose the roll-off and go second, in Old World, I really like to win the roll-off and go first, because it gives me a chance to get my guns working. So it was definitely a bit of an uphill battle, because it now meant that, well, you can see where the Chaos Forces were after one turn. This is a very fast-moving army, and this gives me one less turn to whittle them down. But Chaos turn 1, obviously very fast and furious, but it's now time for Renegade Crowns turn 1. In the movement phase, I bring my knights round here and successfully secure the flank against the enemy knights. With the position of these knights here, it basically is going to force these Chaos Knights to charge this way rather than try and go up the hill. Firstly, that's a much longer charge, and secondly, I believe due to the positioning of both units, that if the Chaos Knights tried to go up there, they would actually make accidental contact with my knights. That was how we had measured it all out, and that was perfectly possible. We get over to the middle, and I move forward all of my infantry units. I move everything forward because I don't want the dragons to hit the flank of this unit. The idea is I absolutely need to hold this turn. Now, there is one slight mistake in this picture, which is the Earthen Ramparts card has been cast, but it's not actually on the halberdiers. So literally it was just a, can I get the spell off? Yeah, cool, throw that card down. That is one that's now active. The Earthen Ramparts card is actually on the spearmen. Don't worry, that was perfectly clear to both myself and my opponent. And the reason why the Earthen Ramparts is on the spearmen is because I want the unit that's most likely to get attacked by the dragons to have Earthen Ramparts. Because if you look at the angle for the dragons, both dragons are going to want to hit one unit. Now, they can either hit the great swords, which I'm totally okay if they do go into the great swords, because these guys have not only got full plate armor, but they've also got great weapons, which actually have a very reasonable chance of wounding one, or if not both of these dragons. Don't forget that I can absolutely challenge cook one of these dragons as well with my unit champion, which will really limit the amount of damage. I mean, I'll get loads of attacks with great swords on here. So I'm not worried if he charged into the great swords. They'll be able to hold. That's fine. He also can't physically charge the halberdiers, because if you look at the angle, the halberdiers are not actually in his in this dragon's line of sight, and definitely not this dragon's line of sight. So the unit where I think the dragons are most likely going to go are the spearmen, because the spearmen are they've got heavy armor and shields, so they've got a 4-up save, but they don't have the strength or the AP of either one of the other units. Also, my general is in that unit, and well, obviously my opponent might want to go for that prize. So I put over the ramparts on the spearmen because they were the ones that I thought would need it the most, and that's where I thought my opponent was most likely to charge. Break through here, start mopping up, hitting these units in the back. Then we get on to the shooting, and I have a frankly devastating round of shooting against these Chaos Knights in the mid. A lot of that came down to the fact they had Plague of Rust on them. So they got Plague of Rust, and then I fired both cannons into them, and I got basically 2 perfect hits, just hitting the maximum number of knights that I could with both of them. And then my captain with his pistol shot one, and then I got a perfect wind blast on them as well, which meant that I was able to just get loads and loads of damage on them, essentially reduce them down to a 5-man squad, because they were on a 6-up save at best. Against the cannons, no save. Against the wind blast, 6-up save. Against the pistol, I think I actually got a 6 to win with the pistol, so I just knocked one out the saddle because that was AP 4 in total. Plague of Rust, such a good spell against these heavily armored units. So I feel like I did what I needed to do in my turn 1 to make a game of this, because if I hadn't done that, there's a good chance the enemy could have broken through. But now it's on, and now we need to hold the line. And do we manage it is the big question when we go into Chaos turn 2. And the answer is, of course we manage it. Of course we do. If we don't hold the line, we don't get paid. It's just that simple. So both of these units of knights actually have the Mark of Khorne, which is very interesting because it means that they have to charge. Now, my opponent very well may have not wanted to charge with these knights, but he didn't really have a choice. So the unit of knights charge in to my halberdiers, and my captain kills another one with his pistol, and then the dreaded rubber lances. Jack just rolls badly. He's got 5 Chaos Knights. Now, admittedly, I challenge out his champion, so that does reduce some of the attacks, but it's still like there was 5 Chaos Knights. 1 gets shot out the saddle by the pistol and stand and shoot. The champion gets like challenge cooked, so that leaves 3 more Chaos Knights, and they get no kills. They get 1 kill. Just rolled a bunch of 1s and 2s to hit and wound, and then I had a 6-up save, and I managed to. I think he got like 2 wounds, and then I made a 6-up save. So I lost 1 guy. And then to rub salt in the wound, my sergeant actually beat his sergeant in combat. His sergeant, he comes rolling in, rolls 3 attacks, misses with all of them, rolls with the horse, hits, wounds, no AP, pass my 4-up save. My sergeant has a halberd, 2 attacks, 2 hits, 2 wounds, 6-up save. So they don't call them veteran sellswords for nothing. So we managed to kill the sergeant, and then I kill another one of them in melee with one of my other halberdiers, and so that means that I win the combat, and I actually break the knights. I don't quite manage to catch them, but they are fleeing, and they are no longer frenzied. Over on the left-hand side, things don't go as well. It's now my turn to have a case of rubber lances. So I do countercharge, which obviously is very good for me because it means that I'm able to, count as having lances. I do countercharge, but all of my attacks basically miss. And then Jack does very well with his attacks and kills 4 of my knights. Fortunately, I just about managed to hold, but I do fall back in good order there. Which is not ideal because it looks like that's going to break now, and then this is all going to start getting swept up. But the big one's the middle. The big one's the middle. So I have earthen ramparts, and I decide to go for hand, weapon, and shield. So I'm on a 3-up, 5-up. And, these guys have got like a decent amount of attacks, don't get me wrong, but they're still hitting on 3s. And yeah, they're winning on 2s, but I've got a 5-up, 5-up against most of the attacks. And between a little bit of bad luck on Jack's part, let's say he should hit with 4 attacks, he only hits with 3. Should wound with all 3, he only wounds with 2. I've got a 5-up followed by 5-up. Between those, I managed to save them. A little bit of bad luck on his end, a little bit of good luck on my end, and the end result is I only lose 6 spearmen to double dragon. Woo! Yeah, that includes stomps, boys. Not very many stomp attacks were had. Yeah, basically the minimum went off. So a little bit of bad luck on for the chaos, and just a little bit of good luck for me, and that was a hell of a hold. And that's massive. That's massive, 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 because I think all that ends up happening is I just give ground, because I do actually have pretty decent static combat res here, because I've got close order, and I've got a banner, and I outnumber the enemy, and I also have got horde with close order, which means I can claim like 3 rank bonus. So I'm going into this with like 6 static combat res. So I just absolutely hold here. I think, you know, I lose the combat by like 1, because basically 6 kills to my 6 static combat res, but then they've got close order as well, so it balances out to I lose by like 1 point. So yeah, I just hold. Whatever comes through those gates, you will stand your ground. If you don't, no extra shot of grog. And then over on the super exciting right flank, the Warpfire Dragon charges my crossbowmen, who proceed to fail their terror test, and they think to themselves, well, we get paid to shoot. We turned up, we shot the dragon, technically the contract's been fulfilled, we're out of there. And they end up fleeing off the board in my turn. We go into Renegade Crown turn 2, and things are not going well for the Chaos Forces. On the left flank, I somehow managed to win that combat. Between a case of rubber lances and full plate spiking, I don't take any casualties. Now in response, my own knights don't do anything, but one of my horses kicks one of his knights in the head and kills him. Now this means that I win the combat by 1, because we're basically equal in every other regard. Jack rolls his leadership and rolls like an 11. Flees a decent distance, but not far enough. And with my swift stride, I am able to catch his Chaos Knights and cut them down. Likewise, the Chaos Knights over here, with swift stride, only rolled a 4 when my halberds charged them. Bear in mind, they did flee, and I cut them down. These Chaos are just not very good at running away. Between game 1 and game 2, I don't know if any Chaos unit that has fled has rolled very high at all. I've rolled like above a 7 or something insane. And then we get to the middle, and it's almost farcical. Like, I kid you not, it's almost farcical. I don't have Earn the Ramparts. That's left over from last turn, right? Because you can't cast it into combat, right? So I'm just on a 3-up armor save. And 2 dragons between just not getting what they need to get, and between me rolling 5-up saves like an absolute fiend. I mean, guys, if you want to roll 5-ups, get the official Games Workshop red Warhammer the Old World dice. These things are fucking sick, man. They roll 5-ups for days. Between bad luck on Jack's end and good luck on my end, I only lose 5 guys. Now, what's really interesting is this produces a very similar result to last turn, because last turn the Chaos Dragons got a total of 6 combat res, and I got a total of like of 6 as well. But then they had close order, so they beat me by 1. So then that's how they were able to push me back. But this time they only got 5 kills. Plus close order meant 6. So this time their total was 6. Now what's interesting is I had a banner, I had close order, I outnumber them, and I still technically have 3 ranks, because I paid for Telian Stoicism, and that makes me heavy infantry, and I went in this phalanx formation. What that means is, because I'm heavy infantry, I only need 4 guys in the rank for it to count as a rank. So even though there's 1 guy missing here, this counts as a rank. So that gives me 6. But then I have a musician and the dragons don't. So I win the combat. And one of the dragons just gives ground a little bit, but one of them actually full-blown falls back in good order. It's like, what the hell, man? Oh, so I obviously follow up into this dragon, and now going into the Chaos turn, it's a really, really difficult situation, because either Jack charges this dragon back in against these spearmen who just will not die. They need to get paid. They will not give in. That maybe these guys are fighting for honor. Maybe they're fighting for survival. Maybe there's a particularly buxom wench at the local drinking establishment, but they are not giving in. And so the big decision for the Chaos player now is, does he fly back in here and potentially get sandwiched, or does he start flying off over here and try and start picking up some easy points? Well, as we all know, Chaos is a ladder, and there is no honor amongst the warriors of the Dark Gods. There is only survival of the fittest. The exalted champion on his purple dragon decides that these mere mortals are more trouble than they are worth. And he also sees an opportunity for advancement. I mean, after all, if the Chaos Lord dies, he will be next in line in the clan. So he flies off over here going after the cannons, because it's very, very unlikely that the cannons will be able to kill this dragon. I mean, even if they get maximum damage, it's very, very unlikely. Now, this does mean that this Chaos Lord is now in a very precarious position, but he does. But I haven't actually been able to do much damage to the dragon, so it's one of those where there's a good chance I could charge in here and then we just sit here, just squash together for a little bit. And then over on the right flank, the Warpfire Dragon comes in here, and for the first time actually does its like spell. It's like its shooting attack, and it's got ballistic skills 0, so it just flies off somewhere and just does nothing. And then on the right flank, the Warpfire Dragon flies around here and vomits onto the greatswords here. It got a good hit with its bombardment thing that it does, and actually managed to kill a fair few of them, but not enough for them to really worry about. Turn 3 for Vossenberg's Vagabonds, and we essentially win the game. I charge the Chaos Lord on two-headed dragon with both the halberdiers and the greatswords. Now, I did not do a huge amount of damage. I think I did 1 or 2 wounds to him. But the important thing was that I just so massively out-combat resed him, it wasn't even funny. He actually picked up the damage, as you can see, on his own. He actually managed, maybe this guy was holding him back, you know. But on his own, he actually did the same amount of damage the 2 dragons had done in the last 2 combats. But it just wasn't enough. Between the wounds that were inflicted, all the extra combat res from the extra banners and flank charges, all of that jazz going on, he was very, very much outnumbered, very much on a almost a double 1 if he wanted to hold. He did not get the double 1. And in fact, I was able to pursue him and cut the dragon down. Once again, I think Jack rolled like a 7 or an 8 to flee with the dragon in total. And then I rolled like a double 6 on the greatsword's pursue and just chopped him the up. And then my crossbowman and my mage were like, well, we're not going to hold against this dragon. So they just moved down to start capturing this objective here. And the cannons, I was like, you know what? I'll give it a go, because if I manage to absolutely ass blast this Chaos Lord, that would be great. But I don't ass blast the Chaos Lord. I do no damage to him. And so these cannons are in a bad way. But yeah, that was basically the end of the game. To say the Chaos player was mildly vexed after my turn 3 was to put it lightly. Over the course of the remaining turns, the Warpfire Dragon flies around launching its missile attack at the infantry, but it's got like ballistic skill 0, so if it doesn't get a direct hit, it just starts flying off everywhere. The Chaos Lord charges into the first cannon and then kills it, and then I think it goes to my turn. I basically just turn round, and then we move over to the next turn, the next Chaos turn. They eat the other cannon. The Warpfire Dragon actually goes into the Spearman. So this is the 3rd dragon that these Spearmen have had to take on. And the Warpfire Dragon actually does reasonable. Jack's dice kind of pick up at this point, but it is unfortunately a little bit too little too late. And so essentially, this was the last picture that I took. These are the last few Spearmen holding out against the Warpfire Dragon. But I can't really kill either one of the remaining dragons now. But the remaining dragons can't really get many points off me either. Like, it's basically, they can kill like the cannons and the crossbows and maybe one brick of infantry. So we just basically quickly play out the last few bits of the last few turns, and we get to the end of the game, and it has been another resounding victory for the Renegade Crowns. And I actually built up a little bit of narrative around this game after it was played. So I figured in the first game we had been hired to go to the edge of the Chaos Waste to investigate the wiggly bits, and then we were given an extra step of the contract, which was to go further into the Chaos Wastes, further into Nausicaa, further into some sort of Chaos lands. And when we did that, we encountered terrible, great beasties, but we were able to beat them. And now we go into the third game, where we've actually traveled across the Chaos Wastes. And the reason I say we marched all the way across the Chaos Wastes is because somehow we found ourselves battling Cathay. Now, this would be my first time playing against Andrew and his Cathay forces, and I was worried. I had seen across the gaming hall Andrew thoroughly trounce two other very good players at this event, running very good armies, and I was just me with my Renegade Crowns and my big bricks of infantry. I didn't have a skew or a trick or a gimmick. I had full plate armor, a hope, and a dream. Now, we've all heard the stories about Cathay, about how overpowered they are. And so it's very easy when you see someone smashing their way across the gaming table, you see yourself getting paired into the army, and you think, oh my God, I'm definitely going to lose this game. But if you think you're going to lose the game, you will lose the game. And so I genuinely made a mental note, a mental preparation, and I was like, no, I'm not going to go into this thing assuming that I've lost. I'm not going to do that. I am going to approach this game with my judgment unclouded. I'm going to ask questions about what my opponent's units can do, and I am going to give this the absolute very best that I can. And if it all goes horribly wrong and everything that they say about Cathay is true and they're just unbeatable, then so be it. But at least if I lose, it will be not because I gave up. And so with my mental fortitude in place, we get into the game. Now, Andrew's list consisted of 2 balloons, one of which had a character on it with the armor of meteoric iron. And then there were 3 war machines on the hill. 2 were the cannons, 1 was the missile battery. There are 2 units of Jade Lancers with the Ring of Jet. I think it's the one that has the Unquiet Spirits in it. That is a terrifying magical item. And then we have the big dragon. The mission was essentially the same as round 1, so pitch battle with a couple of objectives. And for my deployment, I put crossbows and a cannon on a hill, and then I put my other cannon actually just off to the side here. I actually didn't want to get into a artillery duel with the Cathayan artillery because it's better than mine. It has more wounds because of the ogre loader, and it can fire twice. So I put 1 cannon on the hill here because there really just wasn't a better place for it. But the other cannon that's just off camera here, I'm just threading the needle through here so I can draw line of sight onto basically these cavalry units. And the idea is that I'm going to put my firepower into those cavalry, and I'm going to take away what core is in this army, and it might make a bit of a difference. Probably not, but at least it might stop him from getting all of the primary points as well. Then I have my knights on the left flank. This picture's taken on my turn 1. Spoiler alert, I got the first turn. So the knights were over here, and then 3 bricks of infantry, and then the crossbows. One small change in my deployment is I don't put a character with the great swords this time. I have my general, so he can leadership support both units, but my BSB, which goes in the spearman as per usual, but my second prince goes with the spearman as well. And that was because I saw where these balloons and cannons were going, and I figured, look, I need something for them to shoot at. And I figured the great swords are actually, they're not that expensive. You know, both of these bricks are actually a bit more expensive because they're a bit larger. So I thought I'll put the great swords and the crossbows here. It gives something for the balloons and the cannons to shoot at, but my main angle of approach is down the middle and round the left. The old flanky sweep. These guys' job was to die, but to take their time about it, to march at the enemy, draw the fire in, and allow me to close the distance over here. The job of this unit was also kind of to die, but I wanted them to actually make it up the board. But the main thrust was these two units here, move around and start chewing down that line. That was the plan, at least. And that's kind of why, as you see in my turn 1, my movement is the way that it is. I have essentially just sent these very sacrificial and then semi-sacrificial units down the center, and then everything else is swinging round this way. Now, as for my shooting, it wasn't particularly good this turn. I just kill a single Jade Lancer between the two cannons. I think one of my cannons misfired and went poof, and one of the cannons managed to get a good hit, but then a couple of I think one of these units had a 6-up ward save from something, and he passed a couple of 6-up ward saves there. Crossbows did a single wound to the grey balloon. We go over to Cathay turn 1, and the balloons start ballooning. So they come over the top of the great swords, they bomb them, and then they shoot the crap out of them. And that was pretty scary because most of the great swords just disappeared. I was like, look, guys, I know you're going to die, but I told you to die slowly. Like, I told you to take your time about it. And then all the magical bullshit. I have no idea what this is. It's just magic missile after magic missile after magical vortex comes flying into the spearman. And I'm able to, like, dispel one or two of the things, but they still, like, rip through half of the, not spearmen, the halberds, still rip through half of the halberds. And, yeah, it's, I'm like, wow, this is a lot of firepower. The one silver lining is that my bait bombard actually kind of did its job, because my opponent spaffed all of his ogre loaders turn 1, which allows him to do the double shooting thing. And he fired both cannons at my cannon here, my bombard here. And because I'm on a hill, the various cannonballs basically just slammed into the base of the hill or flew over the top. But one of the cannons, actually on its second shot, rolled a misfire, re-rolled it into a misfire, and then blew up. So that was good. I don't need to win the artillery duel. I need my opponent to lose it by blowing himself up. So with explosions going off everywhere, cannonballs flying all over the shop, rockets spilling down from the sky, we go into Renegade Crowns turn 2. And what I'm sure is very obvious to my opponent now, I march at him in my flanking maneuver. So the knights come round here, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to survive some unquiet spirits, but which just completely eat through my 2+ save dudes. But if I can survive that, there's a chance I can make it into these Jade Lancers and then just mash them. And then I march my spearmen up on the left flank, but they've been slowed down by the bullshit cannonballs. And then I put the ramparts on the unit in the middle. Now it was a calculated risk, because obviously I can't march. But I was hoping that more of them would survive, and then that way I would actually have something to get there. Because I figured if I march, then they're probably all going to die and no one's going to get the charge. But if I earn the ramparts and move, then I'll get close enough so that if some survive, next turn I can charge. And then I move my great swords up here. You can see the giant boob balloons are blocking line of sight, but our line of sight, as it were. But the great swords move up, and they're actually in charge range of those Jade Lancers. So if they survive, that would be pretty nice. Big if they are. I think they are in grape shot range. I can't remember if I stayed just out of it. I stayed just out of it. I declared to my opponent, I want to stay just out of grape shot range. And then we measured it all up, and it was all gravy. The crossbowmen try and shoot the cannon, but are unsuccessful. And I do a little bit more shooting with my 2 cannons into the Jade Lancers. And I'm able, I think I kill like 1 from this squad and another 1 from this unit. But now we get to Cathay turn 2. And it's an absolute firestorm. But by the skin of our teeth, we actually managed to weather it. So the cannon and some other various bits of bullshit shooting go into the greatswords and whittle them down to 6. But they pass the leadership test, which is good. The halberds in the middle are battered down to just 4 guys. Oh, the ramparts had to do some heavy lifting, but they do survive, and they pass their leadership test, their panic test. The balloons, and I think the rocket battery and stuff, actually do, this balloon and the rocket battery, I should say, do a number on the spearmen, but, you know, they're okay. They're okay, like, above 50%. But the really, really big news, both Unquiet Spirits failed. This one just didn't go off. Just didn't go off. And this one, I dispelled. Now that was huge. If either one of those spells go off, my opponent basically wins this game. Or is in a very, very, very comfortable position. But neither Unquiet Spirits went off. And so now it's time. A sword day! A red day! Ere the sun rises! Death! Death! My veteran free blades declare a charge into the Jade Lancers. They can't countercharge. I'm too close. We also declare a long bomb charge with the infantry squad here, the halberdiers, into the flank of the Jade Lancers, and I declare a charge with my greatswords into the other unit of Jade Lancers as well. This is where we were at the end of Cathay turn 2, and this is where we are at the end of Empire turn 3. Drive them, men! Drive them! Both units of Jade Lancers are swept from the battlefield. My knights go into the front of the unit, crash into them. My general goes into the side with his sword of battle, and we cut them down. We absolutely cut them down to a man. No survivors. And then we get a huge, and I mean absolutely huge overrun with the knights. Maximum distance. And now we're in the back lines. We've broken through. The great bastion has been breached. But it's not over. Because the other unit of Jade Lancers, it's 6v6. 6 of my veteran cell swords of great weapons versus 6 Jade Lancers. And we crushed them. We take 2 casualties, but we inflict like 4 or 5 casualties in return, and the remaining Jade Lancer bolts completely off the board. Panic filling his entire being, and both units are down, and suddenly, this is a game. But it ain't ogre yet, because the grey balloon gets hit by one of the cannons and gets hit by a whole bunch of crossbows, and I am able to bring it down to just 2 wounds. The other cannon, unfortunately, does not manage to finish the balloon off, but we've got a balloon that's injured. One of the cannons has been destroyed. Both units of Jade Lancers are down. This game is starting to turn. Going into Cathay turn 3, the balloons continue their floaty death march, and now they go towards my firepower. Both unleash into one of my cannons, but this is not a cannon. It is a bombard which means it is toughness 7. And thanks to that toughness 7, it survives on 1 wound. Huge, absolutely huge. And then the dragon comes over here and breathes on on the knights and also on the greatswords, but I managed to actually tank it, and I do get grape shotted by the cannon here, and I lose a whole bunch of knights. I'm down to like I think 3 or 4 knights, but I hold. God damn it, we hold, and that's it. That's Cathay turn. There's nothing else they can do, and so we go into turn 4, and the great charge continues. Now, I must apologise. In all of the excitement, I didn't take many more pictures after this point, but I will tell you what happened. So, in my turn 4, my knights charge the rocket battery, and even though I've only got 3 knights left, all of my attacks hit, all of my attacks wound with the lances, kill the ogre. The basic crewman can do nothing to me, sweep that cannon off the board, and actually overrun off the board, which allows me to be protected from the Cathayan firepower next turn. I also am able to actually kill one of the balloons. I fire both units of crossbows into the 2 wound balloon. Now, even though I'm only wounding on 6s because I'm armor bane 2, every 6 that I get to wound is actually a big deal. And 1 unit of crossbows takes 1 wound off, and then this humble unit of crossbowmen, which have been ignored, disrespected by the Cathay forces all game, take off the final wound and kill the balloon. That gives me the chance to shoot both cannons into the other balloon, but unfortunately, because technically it's got the armor of meteoric iron, it just passes 2 5-up saves. But that's fine. 1 balloon is down. We got a black balloon down. We got a black balloon down. So we've got 1 balloon down, and then the rocket battery's gone. What have the Cathay and the Jade Lancers got left? What have the Cathayans got left? 1 cannon, 1 dragon, 1 balloon. You know what's kind of funny? Those balloons, oh my god, they're so undercosted. Yeah. But when you actually look at what the Cathayans have got left over, this is like 175 points. This is like, you know, a few hundred points. And then like 1 cannon. Yeah, they've got some big things left, but not a lot left. We go into the Cathay turn, and the balloon finishes off my cannon. The dragon is just struggling to do anything. And the cannon blows itself up. The Grand Cannon of Cathay again gets a double misfire and blows itself up. So at the end of Cathay turn 4, all they've got left over is a balloon and a dragon. And realistically, neither side is going to get many more points off each other. Maybe the dragon is able to mop up this unit of infantry there, but that, and maybe the balloon kills like a unit of crossbowmen or a cannon, but that's basically it. And so what happens over the course of turn 5 for both players is the balloon floats over to this cannon and fails to kill it in shooting, like twice. And then the dragon actually fails to kill the infantry here. My opponent just like, he's just breathing fire on me every turn, but it's just, he's just not rolling well. Everything's just going to shit basically. And then my knights just hide behind this hill. And so over the course of the last couple of turns, basically no one gets any points off each other. And that's the end of the game. And somehow we managed to get the win against Cathay of all factions as well. I will say one thing though. My opponent had really bad luck. And that does need to be taken into account. I don't think it would be totally unfair to say that I didn't necessarily win this game. My opponent lost it. Having Unquiet Spirits just absolutely giga fail on the key turn, and then having 2/3 of your artillery just blow up, and then have 2 balloons just roll like piss at a critical juncture and not kill one of my bombards is just 3 or 4 pain points, which individually wouldn't have swung it, but cumulatively, plus at the time that they happened, was absolutely pivotal. But with game 3 over and victory in the bag, no matter how it may have been achieved, we come to the end of the event. And somehow I had managed to go undefeated with Renegade Crowns. And not only that, we had pulled out the first place podium. Quite literally and figuratively, there is no greater reward for a mercenary company, for we had got the gold. Hyperbole to one side, this was one of my favorite events of Old World I've ever been to, and it was an absolute Shark Tank. Every single game, there were big, powerful units at play. And especially that last game, my God, Cathay is bonkers. And even though I managed to beat them, I think if we played that game out another 5, 9 times, I think if I maybe win it 1 out of 5, maybe 2 out of 10, that's really how it probably would go in the future. Lessons learned though, Renegade Crowns are fantastic. The Knights were a unit I really wasn't sure about, but I was so glad that I had them, because they were a tool in the toolbox, and especially in that last game, they proved their worth. As for the crossbows, obviously I put the crossbows in to replace a organ gun that I wasn't allowed to take, and I actually found the crossbows were good in every single game. In fact, it turned out not to be a nerf, it was a blessing in disguise, forcing myself to take those crossbows, because every game they were just slinging out them bolts and doing damage. But I think it's inarguable that the stars of the show were the infantry. The infantry corps! Every day in the corps, it's like a day on the farm. Every meal a banquet, every paycheck a fortune, every formation a parade. I love the corps. The ability to have full plate armor or heavy armor and shields army-wide is just so good. And it makes your Renegade Crowns feel like the infantry they're meant to be. One of the problems with Empire of Man, you guys know I play a lot of Empire, is that the state troops are just so damn weak. The state troops are meant to be these full-time professional soldiers, and yet they feel like peasant men-at-arms. They're just not okay. Even if you just gave the option for state troops to upgrade to heavy armor, that would be enough, right? Renegade Crowns sellswords are absolutely what Empire state troops need to be. And so when I was playing this army, truth be told, this was the first time in 2 years of playing Old World where my Empire actually felt like Empire. Couple of cannons, couple of missile units, bit of heavy cav, and then just infantry holding the line. In the name of the Emperor? Which one, you may ask? Whichever one's paying us the most. Now, I really enjoyed this event, and I thought it was a ton of fun. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Let me know what you thought about the army list. Let me know what you thought about the report. Let me know what you want to see in the future. Should I take Renegade Crowns again, or should we mix things up? And if you want to see more videos like this and you want to support the channel, then don't forget to smash that like button to massage the YouTube algorithm and subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and Patreons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Redfield, 32, Jurgens, Miasma, Try Again, Bragg, R.J., Scorpion, Bonbon Vert, Lord Pryor, Nicholas Walsh, John Stubbs, Guardian, Varney, Sword, Fish Trombone, Picklock the Forged. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.